To this point, we have learned a lot of CSS. And now it's time to talk about CSS Selector Combinators. Now, this is or sounds like a new topic, but we have actually been using combinators frequently as we have been building our CSS and learning about CSS. We just haven't used the term combinator yet. Inside of the CSS that we created in order to make our main navigation, we actually used CSS Combinators here. In this example, we used what is called a Descendant Combinator, in that we used a selector to get a very specific item with an ID, and then we asked for all of its descendant children. In this case, we're using an unordered list, and that specific list that has the ID of main nav, and then we asked for all of its descendant list items. And then in this case right here, we did the same thing. We asked for that the unordered list with the main nav. We asked for all of its descendant list items. And then from all of those list items, we also asked for all of their descendant anchor tags in order to provide that styling. Now, although we've already used Descendant Combinators, let's go ahead and create another example to make sure that we really understand our Descendant Combinators, but also to provide an example to contrast what a child combinator is in comparison to a descendant combinator. And we're going to start off with that descendant combinator since we're pretty familiar with it. We're going to go ahead and create a new example. We're going to use the ordered list on our index page, which has all of our deployments to production in it. We're going to add another child item, and inside of that child item, we're going to add another ordered list, and inside of that ordered list, we're going to add a couple of test items inside of that list item. So let's do test 1, do another li, and we're going to do test 2, and that should be good. All right, and this ordered list has a class of deploy times, and we're going to use that to make sure that we are attacking or styling this specific ordered list and not this one. And we're going to talk about its descendant elements as well as its child elements, and how the two combinators work differently. So we've got deploy times, and it is an ordered list. So let's go ahead and let's create a selector for that. We're going to do an ordered list, and we are looking for the one that has a class on it of deploy times, and we're looking for all of its descendant list items. And we're going to place a style on there that's pretty bold, so we can actually see what's happening. And we're going to use a border, and we are going to make it 1 pixel. We're going to do dashed, and we are going to make it red. Now once we do this, we should see inside of our HTML all of our list items that are descendants of that ordered list, so this original ordered list. And what we see here is that all list items now have a red dashed 1 pixel border on it, both top and bottom, left and right. And we also see that the sub-ordered list that we have inside of list item 4, this sub-ordered list also has the dashed 1 pixel red border. So that means that any li that is a descendant of this first ordered list now has that styling applied to it, even sublists. So let's go back to our CSS. And let's now do a child combinator so we can see the difference between the two. If I look for an ordered list, and we're going to use the deploy times list again, and instead of using just a descendant combinator, I'm going to do a child combinator. And we are going to add a border to it. It is also going to be 1 pixel. It is going to be solid this time, and it is going to be blue. We're going to go ahead and save that. And we should now be able to see the difference between a descendant combinator and a child combinator. So let's go look at it. Here we can see that the initial style that we had, the red dashed one, which applied to all descendants of this original ordered list, has been applied to everything. And then the child combinator that we added, it only applies to the list items that are direct children of that list. So let's talk about that really quickly. If we were to use an analogy, I have a daughter. So she is my child, but she is also one of my descendants. But she is a child. She's a direct first line descendant from me. Now, if my daughter were to have a child, that child would be my grandchild and would still be one of my descendants, but would not be my child. That child would be the child of my daughter. So still a descendant, but not one of my direct descendants, or a first line descendant, not one of my children. So the difference between the two types of combinators, if we go back to our code, is that a descendant combinator will identify the element that we ask for, or elements that we ask for with this first selector, and then it will identify all other HTML elements that meet this selector that are descendants, no matter where they are in the hierarchy below this particular element or inside of this element. Whereas in contrast, the child combinator will look for whatever elements meet this selector, but instead of going completely down the descendant chain, it will only look at direct children or direct first line descendants of this particular element that came back. And we see that in this example right here. The first one, which is a descendant selector, applies to every single LI no matter how deep they are inside of the hierarchical chain, whereas the child combinator will apply only to those first line children of that element. So that right there is the descendant combinator and the child combinator. Now we're going to talk about adjacent sibling combinator and the general sibling combinator. In order to show how these work, we're going to go back to our index page, and we are going to add a couple of paragraph tags right below our H1. And we're going to add some text to that paragraph tag, and then we're going to create another paragraph tag below it. Then we're going to do the exact same thing with our H2 down here, and then this other H2 down here. And now, when we go to our index page, we should see two paragraphs of text directly below our H1 right here, and then two paragraphs of text below each of the H2s. And we're going to use this to demonstrate how our adjacent sibling combinator and our general sibling combinator work. We'll start off with the adjacent sibling combinator. Now, the adjacent sibling combinator specifies that the element selected, now let's write it really quick and then we can look at the syntax as we talk about it. So let's go ahead and let's select our H1 as our first example. And so we've got our H1 right here. So let's say for H1, we want all adjacent siblings that are paragraphs, and we want to provide some kind of a styling for that. To make it really clear, we're going to use our background color, and we are going to set it to, let's do aqua. It's going to be really ugly, but we'll be able to see what happens. Now, remember, the definition was that the adjacent sibling combinator will only find p tags that are directly adjacent to the H1, meaning that they follow in the hierarchy directly after the H1 tag. And so we should see that only the first paragraph tag underneath our H1 actually receives this background color. So let's go look at it. And right here we can see that the first p tag received our styling, but the second p tag did not. And that is because the first p tag is the first paragraph tag that is directly following this H1. It is directly adjacent, whereas this one is not. Okay, so let's go to the general Sibling Combinator, and let's add one for it. And we'll do the H2s so we can see the different. H2 and not plus, we're going to use the tilde P. All right, so in this one, we're looking for all H2 tags that have following paragraph tags, but instead of it being directly adjacent, we pretty much want any P tag that is or follows that H2 tag. So let's go ahead and do a different background color. And we are going to use some other color, and we'll do bisque. And let's go look at it right now. So here you can see, because we have some P tags that directly follow our H2s, and we are just looking for general sibling elements, we've got our H2 right here. And because this P tag follows the H2 and this one follows the H2, they both receive the styling. And it's not because they're directly adjacent to it, but they are, both of them, following that H1 tag. So they both receive the styling. So a little different than the adjacent sibling combinator. So those two provide us a way to get to elements based on the hierarchical order of the elements in our HTML document. Let's get back to our code really quick. All right. Now, the column combinator is another combinator that is used in HTML specifically for tables, and I will leave that one for you to figure out as an exercise on your own.